WFLA Studios. Top stories, breaking news, interactive coverage in the palm of your hand. This is Stream Center Live. Here's JV Buno.
It's been called the holy grail of underwater exploration, finding the missing plane of Amelia Earhart. Now in 2024, we have a sonar image from a team of explorers claiming that they have found the plane last seen more than 85 years ago when Earhart and her navigator Fred Noonan disappeared across the Pacific. That team plus special guest Mark Martin joins us here live from the Stream Center, and we are going to be bringing in your questions live. Hello there to you folks. Welcome on stream once again. JB here with you. We are now live across all platforms with really, to me, the biggest story of the week, the potential discovery of Amelia Earhart. I want to introduce our entire panel here around the screen. Joining us for today's interactive panel, Tony Romeo and Lloyd Romeo, the Romeo brothers of Deep Sea Vision. They are the ones, of course, who have produced this sonar image and created quite a stir amongst the deep sea community. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
And a man who needs little introduction, Mark Martin, retired U.S. Navy submariner, brings in more than 4 decades of underwater exploration, deep sea experience. Mark, it is so great to have you back on stream.
Good to be back, JB.
Yeah, I can't wait to get in all the questions that we're going to be getting into, but let's just start here with the woman at the center of your screen. We're talking here about Amelia Earhart. Really, the subject that we're going to be getting into today is one of America's greatest mysteries, the fate of Amelia Earhart, the fate of Fred Noonan, their Lockheed Electra aircraft disappearing on July 2nd, 1937. Amelia Earhart, a record-setting, trailblazing aviator, known for going where no woman and really in some cases where no man had gone before. And really, this is now more than 85 years waiting for an answer. And this week, Amelia Earhart is on the tip of, it feels like, everyone's tongues because of this sonar image collected by Deep Sea Vision, led by Tony Romeo and Lloyd Romeo there on the top of your screen. Guys, explain to me how this came about. Explain to me the operation. Is this real? Is this actually happening?
Sure. Well, I'll take that one. We both come from an aviation family. Lloyd and I, our dad was a pilot for Pan American Airlines for over 4 decades. Lloyd's a private pilot. I'm a private pilot. Our other brother's a pilot in the Air Force. We've had a fascination with this story for, since we were kids. And so a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to get out of the very uninteresting field of commercial real estate. And I made a decision to do something a little bit more adventurous. And, the opportunity to start a deep sea exploration company fit the bill. And so as we started the company, the biggest mystery of them all was Amelia Earhart. And as Lloyd and I talked about it, we said, why has this one not been solved yet? I mean, it's been out there for over 8 decades. We know in very close proximity where she went down. All the evidence is there. And that's what makes this riddle so fun, is that, a 3rd grader can pick up the evidence and read it and say, wow, this one is not, I mean, you don't need an FAA report. There's not that much information out there to gather. And you can pretty much draw some areas using some few constraints as to most likely area that she went down. Now you get into all the crazy stuff, and you got to just sift through that, and the fringe groups that are out there, you just push them aside, and there's a very limited area of likelihood of where she actually went down, which isn't the romantic answer. Everybody wants to know if she flew to an island, or she goes a POW or a spy for the whatever. But the likely answer is she was very close to her destination, and some unfortunate facts probably threw her off right towards the end. So yeah, we made a decision. Let's tackle this with the latest technology, and I think that's what makes the difference between our expedition and previous ones. Is we used what's called a Huygens 6000, which Mark knows very well. I'm sure he's probably worked on them as well. We have, I think, the last serial number coming out of Kongsberg. It's equipped with the HISAS system. HISAS sensor. It goes down 6,000 meters, full ocean depth, and then basically just mows along and scans the seafloor for anything that it can find.
Lloyd, you want to hop in here as far as how this came to be? I know that there's a lot of people that are obviously extremely excited about this discovery, but also there are those that are saying, wait a minute, hold on, we can't get ahead of ourselves here. The reaction to this has been really international. It's been a global sort of story.
It is. Anthony has mentioned it. It was an idea he came up with, and for Christmas he gets me a book on the Amelia Earhart mystery and disappearance, and so we started reading it and going over it, and we followed the science. There's a certain amount of evidence that kind of points to what happened, and so we learned about the navigation techniques back then. We studied up on the airplane, and then ultimately we went out and took a training course on how to deploy the Hugin 6000. And so we had to go to Norway. We spent a few weeks out there, and then ultimately put it on a boat, chartered it out to close to Howland Island, and deployed it. And after 90 days of being on a 111-foot boat, we came back with what you see up there on the screen.
This is something, of course, that as somebody who remembers learning about Earhart in school, I have so many questions to ask you guys, but we're asking questions, of course, of our audience here as well. And what I'd like to do here is I'd like to bring up our interactive poll question on screen. And let me explain everybody how this works, because we have new poll functionality for everybody watching. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, WFLA.com. All you have to do now is go into a browser and go to www.heyjb.live, and it'll bring up this poll question. There is no tracking or anything like that. There's no gotcha moment. It's just simply a URL destination for you to be able to vote yes or no based on this new sonar image. Do you think Amelia Earhart's plane has been found? And let's bring up that picture now, Tony, because this is the picture that is making the rounds on Instagram, off of the Deep Sea Vision Instagram page, off, of course, of so many news outlets that are sharing this image. It's a grainy image. Perhaps you can talk to me at first about the quality. What exactly are we looking at here, and why are you so confident that we're talking about an aircraft and not something else?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple characteristics I want to point out on this image. One of the most distinctive features on her aircraft were the twin vertical stabilizers on the back, on the empennage of the plane. There weren't a lot of planes made that way. They don't make them that way anymore, but her aircraft had those two vertical stabilizers. I'm holding the plane up and you can kind of see them. So when you're imaging a plane or an object, any object on the surface of the seafloor, you're going to be seeing the things that are going to reflect the most back to the sonar system are the ones that are, the most basically a wall. If you're imaging the side of a wall, it's going to bounce straight back. If you're imaging something that's flat on the seafloor, you're not going to get as much a stronger return because it's simply not bouncing off of it. So these two little vertical fins were very nice to see in this image, and you can clearly make them out. The next thing is the dimensions of the aircraft very closely match what her aircraft was, and she was about 12 to 18 meters. The image is a bit bigger than that, and that's for various reasons. Mark can weigh in on that too. But as the target gets further and further away from the sonar system, it's going to stretch and distort the image a little bit, and that's just a function of the sound waves going to the object and coming back. Sort of like how shining a beam of a flashlight at something, it's going to stretch it out. So as you're going by the object, the closer you are to the sonar system or the flashlight beam, the more precise dimension you can get. The further away you are, the longer you're going to see that object with that flashlight beam because it's wider. So it's going to sort of stretch it out. And that's been, there's been one of the things that, well, it's got swept wings. Amelia's plane doesn't have swept wings. Well, and I completely concur with that. But you'll notice, and I got the image up there, you'll see the tail is actually also swept too. Amelia's plane, the tail wasn't swept. So if you kind of sort of correct for those sonar anomalies, stretching, distortion, whatever you want to call it, and you kind of straighten that out and straighten the front wings out, you actually end up with an image that very closely aligns with her plane. But I mean, we welcome the arguments and discussion on this. This isn't this isn't conclusive yet by any means.
Let's bring in Mark. Mark, you've seen a lot of underwater imagery. What do you make of this?
I've got a question, Tony. So what was the altitude? What was the altitude you took this image at?
So of the sonar system?
Yeah, how far from the bottom?
So we were flying at about 55 meters, and this was imaged at about 200 meters away from the target.
Okay, that makes sense. That's gonna that's gonna be part of the reason why this image isn't quite as clear as some people would like it to be.
I
And
mean,
I like your explanation on the swept wing and the swept tail as well, because it all depends on the attitude of the beams hitting the object and the return. So,
Mark, you've seen a lot of underwater images. Is this considered to be low quality, medium quality, high quality? I mean, we're talking to our mainstream audience here who doesn't see a lot of underwater imagery. So,
um, to somebody in the industry, this is probably a medium quality image. Um, Certainly, as Tony has said, they want to go back with some other equipment and get a closer, more high definition look, and we're really not going to know. Um, does it look promising? Absolutely. Am I convinced that it's that airplane? No. But it certainly has piqued my interest. I've known some people that have gone to look for the Earhart plane. Um, this is, I think, as close as anybody has gotten so far. Um, the image makes sense. Tony's description and discussion about why the image looks like it's got swept wings. They're far enough away from it that it's going to be a little bit grainy. We're not going to know for sure until somebody goes back and gets a closer look at it.
so again, we're asking our audience here to vote, and you can vote, of course, by going to in your web browser. Again, there's no catch here. You just in your web browser, you go to www.heyjb.live and you vote in a yes or no poll. It's one tap, one click poll. Do you think that this is Amelia Earhart's plane based on the conversation that we were having today, based on what you're hearing from Tony and Lloyd and what you're hearing from Mark? Of course, you don't have to listen to me. I'm just here to ask the questions. Tony and Lloyd, I want to bring you guys back here with this picture because, yes, it appears to be the shape of an aircraft, right? I mean, we could all see that. And then we have, in the bottom left, we have what appears to be now another white section of the image. Is that, does that make sense as a piece of debris here? Is that what we're supposed to believe? And then also as well, because there's been a lot of conversation, even Mark and I were texting last night a little bit about whether or not at 15,000 feet, whether or not Amelia Earhart's plane would actually be intact. Would it fall apart after 80 plus years? Would it be mostly intact? This is really a big question and something that's stirring up a lot of conversation amongst deep sea explorers in the community.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll take that second question first, which I think is a really good question. We fine tuned our search we set our filters basically between 10 and 30 meters. And anything less than 10 meters, we basically realized that we weren't going to identify it. Anything greater than 30 meters, you could automatically filter out as not going to be her aircraft. And so we made a decision early on, and after a lot of conversations, we had 4 hours here on the broadcast. I'd love to talk about it, but was that we made the decision that she landed the aircraft gently on the water and kept it intact, and that was based on other Electras, the same aircraft that had crash landed on the water, and all of them had remained intact. And we also based on the fact that her crash was likely the result of fuel exhaustion, and I think we all agree to that. And if that's the case, she would have brought the airplane in as gently as possible. Now, having been out there on the ocean, and seeing the swells, they weren't that big. We're talking 2 to 3 meter swells. So it's possible she got it in between the swells and landed it right. She would have been okay. If she didn't, maybe hit the wave, maybe it flips over, maybe parts of it come off. There's a debris field, and you've got a plane that's in pieces. But we made the decision that if we were going to find this and then cover the ground that we wanted to survey, because we modified our Hugin 6000. Mark will love this. We went out a mile. Our swath was a mile wide. I mean, we used undersampled SAS, not side scan, undersampled SAS to basically stretch our beam width from 200-300 meters all the way out to 800 meters. So we were doing mile sections back and forth to cover as much ground as we can. And as far as I know, I think this is the most efficient survey ever done in the history of in the history of AUV. work. And I'm very proud of that. We have a guy, Craig Wallace, who actually designed Hugin's. I stole him from Kongsberg to come over and be he's our vice president of operations. So he's the one that built the Hugin's, came and he did this survey for us. So we made the decision that we were going to filter out for a certain size of target. And when you're not going for 1 meter square resolution anymore, that changes the whole game. If you're trying to read a credit card off the surface of the ocean or off the seafloor, yeah, you're talking about a completely different kind of scan here. That's not what we were doing, and so I think that helps explain a little bit about our logic. I hope that answers your question there.
Lloyd, anything to add to Tony?
No, he's right. We were walking a line between scanning as much and covering as much ocean as possible, and then getting as much resolution. So those are opposing requirements, and so we're kind of walking a line between them. One thing I wanted to mention, to the layman, this is very similar to an ultrasound when the technician gets out there and looks at your belly, and the physics and the science are almost identical. And so the only difference is that we're moving through the water and we're trying to collect data as you go, and sometimes you're hitting the same spot twice. And so that information has to be brought in. The computer has to stitch it all together. And so it's quite a process. Like I said, it's very computer intensive.
We're going to start to take questions now from our audience. You can ask questions, folks, regardless of whatever platform you're watching on. In the comment section, you can use any of the hashtags on your screen, #AJB, and that basically sends a signal to me that you want your question to be featured live. And I'm going to start here with Patty's question, because this is perhaps the most fundamental question. Patty's asking #AJB, where did they find it? And guys, if you found Atlantis, are you going to share the exact precise coordinates? Tony, I mean, I don't know if you are sharing out exactly where this was found or the general vicinity, but I'm sure that there's a lot of curious observers, historians who are saying, hey, I would really love the exact coordinates to know where this is so that if we can determine for ourselves if this adds up. But then are you worried about somebody else going out there and retrieving it before you guys do?
Yeah, if I could count the number of times we've got, Lloyd and I were laughing with the inquiries we've got through the websites. Can you send us the coordinates?
You know what my answer would be?
How would you answer that, Mark?
Hell no.
And so the corollary to that, JB, and I'll ask the questions, which is a good question. Like, well, then why are you releasing this right now? Isn't there a little bit of worry of somebody finding this? And I'm happy to answer these questions. We're not hiding anything. There were people on the boat. JB, you can back me up here if you want. You worked, it sounds like, on some very secretive, confidential missions. I mean, we were not the only ones on this boat, right? So there was 6 other boat crew. There's a charter company behind them. There's family and friends. I have a wife. I have, so, once this discovery was made, it's only a matter of time till it leaks out. This is not, this isn't a rowboat that we found in Lake Michigan. This is Amelia Earhart's plane, and you can sign all the NDAs you want, but it's just a matter of time till this gets out. And so so that's the first part of it. You can only keep a secret for so long. The second part is this image. There's no coordinates on the image, so it's just a sonar image. It could be from anywhere in the world. I mean, but I tell you, it's within 100 miles of Howland Island. If you want to go out and search that, good luck. It's 10,000 square miles. It's going to take you a while. And then the third piece is the equipment we have. There's only a handful of them in the world. I don't know, Lloyd, Mark, you guys jump in. I mean, I think there's less than a dozen in the world. Maybe Ocean Infinity has several of them. But I mean, if you want to put together an expedition like we did, it took us 18 months. And this is not something, and we own the equipment. Good luck going and leasing this stuff. So if you want to go out and make a run at this, I mean, good luck. That's why I say I think it'll be.
Deep pockets.
Say it again, Mark. You didn't come through.
You better have some deep pockets.
Deep pockets. Yeah. Well, but I'll tell you, there are
not cheap, and the deeper you go, it becomes exponentially more expensive.
So Tony, how much of a rush is there now to get back down there or really to get the equipment necessary down there to start a next expedition to get some eyes down there and really see what we're looking at?
Yeah, there is some urgency, obviously, to getting back out there. I mean, we want to confirm this one way or the other. And listen, if it's not the plane, I mean, I'm pragmatic about all this. It may not be the plane, and if it's not, we're going to continue searching. And that was the whole strategy. And one of the things I think was lost in all this media that's come out the last couple of days. He spent $11 million. We spent $11 million, but the expedition was only $2 million. We founded a company that was called Deep Sea Vision. We bought the equipment with the purpose of starting deep sea exploration. After we finished Amelia, we did a search for another lost aircraft. It hasn't gotten any news attention yet in the Pacific. We finished that. And we're working in Australia. So this is a business, as a company that I founded with the intention of going out and doing deep sea exploration work, and with the idea that we would eventually find Amelia Earhart. This is the first evidence, I believe, it's ever been presented of real evidence of her aircraft in the deep ocean. And if this turns out not to be it, we're going to continue. This isn't the end for us. I want to find this airplane.
MGM Racing on YouTube Live, #KJB. How deep is it? So I think you've said, is it about 15,000 feet?
Yeah, that's right. 15 to 16,000 feet. That's right.
And I want to ask this question before I get into some of the other stuff. And guys, we're coming across almost to 12:30 Eastern. You guys can, if you guys have to go at 12:30, we have a lot of questions in the queue for the Romeo brothers here joining us live from the Stream Center. But one of the questions that I really wanted to ask is, as someone who's done a little bit of homework on Earhart, there's really, to me, the two most plausible theories: that she crashed somewhere in the ocean looking for Howard Island, or that she somehow made it somewhat close to the reefs of Gardner Island. Can you guys share with us whether or not this location of this sonar image is somewhat close to Gardner Island, or is it just elsewhere remotely in the Pacific?
Yeah, the Gardner. Let me take this. I love this question because the Gardner Island is so when she was her last transmission. One of her last transmissions was, we must be on you but cannot see you. Half-hour gas. So there was a ship waiting to meet her. They didn't see her, but the transmission from the radio was so clear that they wrote down S5, which meant that it was basically there. They ran up on the deck to look for the airplane. Of course, nobody saw it. But she said we're a half-hour gas. And so the Gardner Island theory that you mentioned is 4 hours south of Howland Island, and it's been discredited by many folks. I mean, don't take my word for it. I mean, this is third party. This is the Smithsonian. This is guys like Thomas Detweiler. This is the giants like David Jordan, Ted Wyatt, who did a huge search, Dana Tim. So, so there's kind of two communities of thought. There's the Earhart community, the guys that are really serious about it, and there's the general population that hasn't really studied it. You can fool those folks. And I'm not mean that in any disrespect, but amongst the general population, it sounds romantic to send an idea out there that she flew to another island. But within the real Earhart community, folks kind of roll their eyes when that is presented as a theory. No, we weren't near Gardner Island. We were near Howland Island, very close to her destination. She was a great pilot. Her navigator was terrific as well. They gave us all the information. She was searching. She probably entered a search grid, some kind of search pattern right at the end, and unfortunately didn't see the island.
Is it within line of sight, Tony, of Howard Island, or is it that close, or is it not that close?
It's not within line of sight, no. But it is an interesting question. It's one we discussed often. If her engines sputtered and cut out within eyesight of the island. Now, one of the questions we always ask, would the folks on the boat have seen the plane or heard the plane first? I don't think they would have heard the plane first. I think they would have seen the plane I actually stopped hearing an aircraft 2 to 3 miles away, but you can see a plane from a longer distance. But she could have been gliding towards the island. And it's one of those things that really kind of bothered us a little bit. So how close to the island do we search? Because if her engines cut out and she was able to glide 2 or 3 miles towards the island, there is a little area, a ring around the island that maybe should be searchable, because even though it's within eye shot of the ship where the ship was, they still could have landed there, could have crashed there because their engines cut out. Nobody heard them or saw them.
Anything to add there, Lloyd, before I get on to the next piece here?
Yeah, there are a couple items. One, we believe that she didn't fly straight into the island, that they did what they call landfall, where they fly, an offset and then come in from an angle along the line that the sextant would give them. So we always kind of felt that that's what they did. So, I always kind of felt that the sailors, not knowing that, we're probably always looking to the west, okay, expecting her to come that way. And actually, she may have been coming from another direction. So unfortunately, they may have been just looking at the wrong direction just because of their the mindset. Yeah, I think yeah, I think that's kind of there's a whole comedy of mistakes, unfortunately. There was miscommunications on the radio. Like I said, the communications, like Anthony said, they just thought she was right above them. And so for them to divert 400 miles away, it seems like a non-starter to me.
I know that your time is precious, fellas, so I'm going to try to get on with some of the subject matter here. Cello or Cello in our comment section, #KJB. What doubts do you have, if any, when evaluating this image? That's a perfect segue to, I'm looking here at a New York Times article. It is titled, "An Explorer Believes He Found Amelia Earhart's Plane. Experts Aren't Convinced." And the New York Times interviewed several experts who aren't saying that it's not the plane, Tony and Lloyd, but what they are saying is that there have been dozens of expeditions, dozens of massive search efforts. This is going back 8 decades. I mean, back to the initial exploration that took place around Howard Island to look for Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan. I'm sorry,
Tony. Yeah, I just wanted to correct one thing right there. I think that is a perception that there's been dozens and dozens of searches, and the actual, and I see Mark shaking his head. That's correct. He's correct. There's only been how many, Mark? 5? I think 4 or 5. And I think Americans have this idea that there's been people out there just searching every day. And there's somebody out there right now with canoes and I'm not, and it's such a difficult place in the world to get to that there really has only been 5 deep water searches. You mentioned a group that went to Gardner Island. I think they've been there 13 times and they came back with a jar of freckle cream. I mean, that's at a certain point you kind of have to give that one up. But in the real searches that around Howard Island, there's only been 4 or 5, and it's so difficult to get the right equipment with the right crew and the right vessel. There's no ports nearby. It's not something very many people have done. So I just want to make sure that point is clear, on the record.
I'd like to add that you mentioned someone who's probably one of my 3 top best friends that I've worked with since the initial Titanic expedition, Tom Detweiler. Tom led one of the 4 or 5. I think it's 5. Tom led one of those, and I could tell you that if Tom didn't find it, then and again, the technology's come a long way in the 2024, so it's probably been 14 years, I think, since that expedition was done, which doesn't sound like a long time, but the way this technology advances, it's a freaking lifetime. So yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying, Tony. There is that perception that, and there's a lot of people that have spent a lot of time and money looking for it, but serious expeditions, there's only really been about 5. Okay,
that's good to know. And what qualifies as a serious expedition to you, Tony? Something that really qualifies as an authentic search for Earhart?
When you look at the evidence that's presented, and you map out the likelihood, the possibilities of where she could have gone down. When you start adding evidence and conjectures, and you start removing pieces of evidence, then you could end up anywhere. The Japanese POW or American Spy Theory is a perfect example of that. It's a fun one, based kind of loosely on a movie that came out shortly after her disappearance. But if you watch the documentaries on that, you'll see that there's no firsthand evidence of anybody presenting that she actually was ever captured or shot down near the Marshall Islands. It's all, I heard somebody else say from somebody else. And so you end up with, a theory that just isn't backed by evidence.
Guys, I am 5 minutes past the half hour, so it's totally up to you. There are more questions here in the queue for the 2 of you, the Romeo brothers. If you guys have to get going, totally understand. I will send you guys the poll results, or if you'd like to hang out for a little bit longer, it's totally up to you guys.
Yeah, we take more questions. I think we've got another one at about 20 minutes, but go ahead, sure.
All right, yeah, let's get to some of the questions here. And we alluded to this earlier, and thank you, Tony and Lloyd, for spending a little more time with us. Matt, wants to know, hashtags first all around, all 4 hashtags here are represented. Is it realistic to believe that the plane remained in one piece? And Mark, this is one of the reasons why I was excited to have you on today to join Lloyd and Tony, is talking about the likelihood that 80-something years later and 15,000 feet down, that this is actually somewhat intact. Who wants to take Matt's question here first?
Tony, can I start first?
Yeah, I think Mark's best for this. Yeah,
I'm the unbiased one here. Yeah, the swept wing, as Tony said, she knew she was running out of gas. She probably ditched at sea. She was an outstanding pilot. If the seas were favorable, she could have landed that thing pretty well. There would have been some damage, no matter what. There would have been some damage, and maybe that explains the swept wings. Maybe there was a little bit of fuselage or structural damage that caused the swept wings. The other part of that is that plane had to float down to 16,000 feet from the surface. It's going to gain some speed doing that. It may have, much like the landing on the surface of the water, it may have had a similar type of landing into the seabed, which, if I'm not mistaken, is fairly flat and soft in that particular area. So yeah, my personal opinion is there a good possibility that the plane could have remained mostly intact with, for lack of a better word, minimal damage? And my opinion is yes, that it could have.
Lloyd, Tony, you guys agree?
We do. As Anthony had mentioned, we did look into, we did a little research, and we did find another Electra 10E that crashed into a lake up in the Northeast, and it was in surprisingly good shape after the crash. It washed up on the shore, and they pulled it out. But like Mark was saying, there was some damage. But on the other hand, from other research we did, we learned that such an aircraft would probably sink after about 10 minutes, which is probably why the surface search for her right away back in 1937 didn't turn up anything. And then the last item I wanted to mention was that at that depth, all the oxygen has been squeezed out of the water. It's very cold down there, very dark. It's very stable. And so a piece of aluminum would probably stay fairly recognizable for many, many decades sitting down there. So now we did, go to Kongsberg, and we looked at similar airplanes that they had scanned, and, you can see it, there's images similar to what you're looking on the screen now. So that's another reason we feel very confident.
I want to come back to Cello's question here, because we did kind of jump from question to question, but I was talking about the New York Times article. I was talking about, the doubts about whether or not this is actually the plane itself. Tony, I want to circle back to you on that conversation and give you an opportunity to address the New York Times article and just kind of some of the pushback, if you will, out there that maybe this isn't the Earhart plane as has been suggested here by you and your team.
I actually haven't read the Times article this morning, so I can't comment on what was said. We talked to the reporters a couple days ago. It was a nice interview, and so as long as it's fair and they're presenting evidence on both sides, I have no objection, and I think Lloyd feels the same way. And and that's been my objection. I sort of with some of the other theories that are out there is that they don't show up to the consortiums or the group meetings to talk about the Earhart stuff because they don't withstand, they can't stand up to the scrutiny that evidence is presented. We're more than happy to talk through it. If there's somebody that has a good reason why this isn't the plane, we'll happily listen to them.
And Lloyd, just would you like to hop in?
Yeah.
Would you like to address it too?
Yeah, I think skepticism and questioning, that's science. That's how it's done. You always have to question everything. And, we're big boys. We've, we can handle that. That's not a problem. And, we questioned everything. So, no, have at it. Bring it on.
Let's get
I've got something to add, JB.
Sure.
one of the reasons that I have the opinion that there's a strong possibility that it could be intact is we found a World War II British Spitfire off the coast of Lebanon, 6,000 feet of water, that we were able to get the tail number off of and report back to the British government so that they could identify who the pilot was of that plane. And that thing was in almost pristine condition.
Wow.
And that was in the middle of a war, and it went down in 6,000 feet of water. So that's part of my experience and why I tend to believe that, yeah, there's a strong possibility it could be one piece.
And if I could echo that, JB, if your audience wants to see some examples of that, look up, I think it's the USS Lexington, that when that went down, there was a bunch of planes that were on the deck. Is that right, Mark? And they slid off as it hit the seafloor. And you can see them. I mean, there's images all over Google. Just Google USS Lexington at the seafloor. And the planes look like they from yesterday. I mean, they're perfectly preserved. If this had been at 100 meters or 100 feet in the water, as Lloyd said, you have a lot of free oxygen, you've got different conditions, currents, moving water, a little bit of light, and the planes would rust and corrode pretty quickly. In fact, one of the things that's interesting about this is if it's a plane, we're able to salvage it and bring it to the surface, it's going to need to be immediately put into a bath of water on the deck of the ship. It cannot just be put up and tossed on the deck, because it's going to start corroding really quickly. So it needs to be preserved in the same kind of water bath, taken to some kind of special laboratory and restored properly.
Again, this is the last call for your hashtag-based questions, hashtag HeyJB, or whatever hashtag you see on screen to get your comment on screen, like this one from Facebook from Cami, which is this is a great question. Will they go down soon with a submersible to claim it so no one else will take it? Guys, let's just say we'll continue here. I have a sound effect for it. If we'll kind of pretend for a second that this is in fact the plane itself, the plane of Earhart, and you go down there, you positively ID it. What are the next steps? Are you going down there to retrieve it? Whose property is it? What do you do with it from that point forward?
Yeah, these situations get very complex, and I'll let Mark weigh in on this, because it's not a short answer. The Titanic was, I see him kind of, it's, Titanic was insured. Amelia Earhart's plane wasn't. That's one of the first differences. It's an important difference, because the insurance company always holds a claim on anything lost at sea. But it is private property. This wasn't government. If it was an aircraft, a World War II aircraft or something like that, it's immediately the U.S. government. So it isn't claimed that way. If it was within an EEZ or the monument or some area that was under U.S. jurisdiction, then that creates some permitting issues and access issues. So this is a very complex issue. I can say, we've involved the Earhart family. We've contacted them. We've asked them to come along with us to go confirm that it's the plane. They would like to come along. They're very excited about this. So yeah, there's a lot of steps to get to before we start, talking about salvage. You're right. 2 people did die here. I think one of the most interesting things is, did they get out of the plane? Is the hatch open on the plane when we get there? And if it is, maybe they were able to get out and swim away, which would create even more questions. And they swim to another island. Maybe those guys, maybe they swam to Gardner Island. Maybe that's how they got there, with her jar of freckle cream. I don't know. But no, ultimately we all agree that this belongs in the Smithsonian, and that's what we're pushing for.
Okay, and I want to get to as many viewer questions, because I've asked a lot, and I was going to ask about where Amelia is, but I think we just heard a little bit there from Tony. But Lynn wants to know, so this is a very modern day question, but hashtag HJB, is there a black box on the plane? I don't think that black boxes were really invented, or some type of real-time monitoring system that would give us any kind of historical data on what was going on in the final moments of the Electra. But would there be anything, Tony and Lloyd, in the plane, not even technology, but anything that could be preserved that would show or give you any ideas to maybe what happened, a handwritten note or anything at all?
Well, it's possible you have a handwritten note. I mean, I don't know if paper can survive that many decades underwater. It's probably not. But you got to understand, you get the mindset of 1937 here. And at that time, when that Electra was built, it was an aftermarket outfit that installed the radio. I don't really think they had a whole lot of other electronics on the, on the airplane other than the lights and stuff like that. So this aftermarket company, they installed the radio and they had a battery in there that they installed. And our best guess from looking at that battery may have lasted 10 minutes without the engines running. So no, the electronics were vacuum tube and primitive, and the battery probably not much different than your car battery. So yeah.
Yeah, she would have radar,
No radar. Yeah, radar would have solved a lot of stuff.
If she'd have had radar, she'd have been in good shape, but it wasn't enough.
Lloyd, Tony, we really appreciate your time and answering viewer questions here as well. I'll be sure to make sure that our poll results, when we do get them, we will, of course, share them with you. Again, it's a very basic question asking our audience, based on today's conversation, do you think that Amelia Earhart's plane has been found? I'll end out here just with the two of you. People want to know next steps. When are you going to go down there? When's the next expedition? When are we going to find out for certain is this not the Earhart plane?
Coming soon. Stay tuned. We'll be making announcements on our, if you want to follow us, find us on Instagram, deep.c.vision. We'll be making announcements too. I hope sometime in 2024. It might be early 2025, but it's extremely challenging and complex to put together an expedition like this. We might need some different equipment. We might go back to the AUV. We haven't made a decision on that yet, so stay tuned, but it'll be soon.
We're enthusiastic about following this to wherever it might lead. So yeah, stay tuned. There's more to come.
All right. The Romeo brothers.
Yeah, this is great.
I'm sorry. Was that you, Mark? Yeah.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I mean, I'm certainly not as excited as they are because they've had much better looks at it than I have. But I think this is as close as anybody's been. And as we were talking, before we went on the air, JB, if you'll give my contact information to the Romeo brothers.
Sure.
I'm here. I'm here if you want to bounce questions. We had a few questions beforehand. More than happy to help.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, guys, really appreciate it. And I'll say this: look, if it's not the plane, this is still exciting in that people that otherwise wouldn't be talking about Earhart are talking about Earhart, and that's just exciting for a history buff like me, or an amateur history buff, if you will. But at the same time, guys, if this is the plane, I really want to have you back on. That would be really great if we could bring you back, and because we'll have a gajillion questions additionally from our audience to ask you. So, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks, JB. Yeah, thanks, JB. I just want to add to your last statement there. She is America's favorite missing person, and as long as we have not found her plane, there is going to be somebody out there looking for her. So, yeah, I appreciate you saying that, having us on. Thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate your time, guys, and we hope to have you on again in the future, guys. Give them a follow on social media, Deep Sea Vision, because that's where they're going to be posting all of their updates, and we really appreciate their time. Mark, don't you go anywhere, because I have some follow-up questions for you, and we're going to really emphasize this poll now going forward as they hop off of the Zoom chat, because I have so many more questions for you, Mark, and hopefully your lunch plans are still somewhat in the distant future.
It's like we discussed the last time. It's not like I can't afford to miss a couple of meals.
Let me just say that I'm so glad to be back on stream with you, by the way, because guys, I get messages all the time. Where is Mark Martin? And usually my response is he's on his motorcycle somewhere, maybe in Daytona Beach or wherever he would be, riding around in his motorcycle. Mark, you're obviously your expertise during the OceanGate coverage was invaluable, and it is good to come face to face with you again here, my friend.
Same here. Same here. I'm glad that there's another opportunity to do this. I really enjoyed it last time. As we said, I was on all of the main networks, but obviously the vast majority of the time was with you on here.
Yeah, it was.
And it was great. The
Let's fix that. Mark, guys, apologies for the technical difficulties, a system failure on our end. And if you're still sticking around, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Now we're getting into the real Q&A for Mark. So if you have a question for Mark, please ask it in the comment section with hashtag HeyMark. You can also use hashtag HeyJB. Mark, let me just quickly, while I'm parsing through some of the comment sections here on my screen here to the left in the Stream Center, your general reaction, you had expressed some doubt when we had talked yesterday. How do you feel now after hearing Tony, after hearing Lloyd, the Romeo brothers? Where's your head at?
It wasn't necessarily doubt as it was professional skepticism, only because I know a couple of the people who have led the very few serious expeditions to go look for this plane. Looking at that, and I really didn't have a chance to look at the image yesterday very much. That image is of an object that's man-made. If you look at the angles, I would be astounded if they get down there and find out that that's a natural formation. It just, with the angles, with the dimensions, with everything else, it just, the seabed out there is relatively object free. So for something to show up, more than likely it's going to be man-made, especially if it looks like that. And after listening to the brothers, I absolutely, they've done a professional job. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's a fly-by-night shoestring amateur operation. These guys have done their research. They hired the right equipment. They went out, they did the initial search, and they found something. And now they've got to go back with a bigger boat with more sophisticated equipment. Well, not necessarily more sophisticated equipment, but different equipment that does other things that would give them a clear image.
I have a lot of questions for you. And before we get into the Q&A, and I'm sure our audience has a lot of questions for Mark as well. You can use either of the hashtags on your screen to ask Mark a question. But I really want to emphasize this poll because we're trying to generate as many votes as possible. The more votes that we have, obviously, the more legitimate our results are. And we now have the ability. We had problems in the past with polling because we would do it on Facebook, and then we would do it on YouTube, and then we would kind of have to mash the results together, but we didn't know if there were duplicate results coming in. It was just kind of a mess. We now have a polling system, and we're asking this question here. Actually, it's the first time we're testing this polling system, so hopefully everybody can partake. in your web browser on your phone, or if you're watching on a computer, just open up a new tab. Any device, just open up your web browser and go to www.heyjb.live. There's no gotcha or tracking sort of mechanism or anything like that. Mark knows me well enough to know I'm a straight shooter. I wouldn't steer you guys in the wrong direction. It is just simply a URL to house our interactive poll for this live stream, asking you this question, and it's one tap away. There's also a function on there where you can put in your name or your username, and we'll scroll it on screen as kind of a cool hat tip to our audience, where if you want to be part of our stream team and you want your name to be visible or your username to be visible on future live streams, we will show that you are supporting interactive journalism, but that is purely optional. Really, the only thing that we are mostly looking for is for you to vote in this poll. Yes or no? Do you think, based on this new sonar image, do you think Amelia Earhart's plane has been found? So we'll wait for the results to come in. I'm curious if it's more than 50% or less than 50%. Are there doubts? Is there a high level of confidence? Because Mark, this is as far as a missing persons case. I like how Tony put it. You could argue that this is the most historical missing persons case of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's a more famous missing person anywhere, let alone in the U.S., than Amelia Earhart. And everybody at the time, she was the world's sweetheart, and went missing. So this is huge. If they found it, this is huge. And I really like that they're obviously they're going to exploit it. They're going to write a book. There's going to be a documentary that they're going to help produce that's going to make money. But the plane is going to go to the Smithsonian. They're not going to try and sell it or whatever. So, am I convinced? Absolutely not. Is there a decent chance that this is her plane? Yeah, and I hope it is. Frankly, I hope not just for their sake, but I hope from an exploration standpoint that they found it. We all you got to be crazy to do this for a living.
Clearly.
You just got to be crazy to do this for a living. Maybe that's why there aren't that many of us that do it. But we all pretty much wish each other success, because we're going to learn from these expeditions out there. We're going to learn maybe some new techniques, or they're learning from us. We may be able to learn from them. So it's great. I think it's great for history. It's great for everything all the way around.
Let's get to this question from McKenna, and we'll bring this up on screen. Hopefully it works. Not sure why it is not. Oh, that's because I have it turned off. Let's turn it on. McKenna, #HJB, is there any way to get it up on shore? Well, it wouldn't be on shore. It would be on a vessel. Mark, can you paint a picture for us as to just how difficult it would be to retrieve this aircraft and do so, mind you, in a way that it doesn't fall apart? I picture, and everyone's gonna have to forgive me for this very silly analogy, but I picture, when you drop an Oreo at the bottom of your milk cup, yeah, and it just, you try to pick up the Oreo after too long and it just falls apart. That is that in essence what could happen here? They try, if it's done in a way that is, could it just fall apart as you're retrieving it from 15,000 feet down?
Absolutely. It absolutely could fall apart. It's going to be, planes are recovered frequently. Not planes that are this old or from that deep, but planes are recovered fairly regularly. Pardon. And will it be Will it be difficult? Yes, but it's not overly complicated, if that makes sense. It's maybe not a straightforward, but it's a fairly straightforward approach. The equipment needed and the timing and all of that is going to be, that's the difficult part. The equipment's out there. You got to be able to get your hands on it. You've got to understand the physics. You're probably, I'm thinking you're going to have to design some kind of a cradle that you can get under it.
And not just lift it up from the tail, right?
No, it would fall apart even if it was at, more than a few hundred feet. Because you've got the weight of the plane, you've got the weight of the water, got all of those things. So you'd have to design some kind of a cradle that you could get under it. And maybe that's a two-part, maybe it's a clamshell that comes down and it's got tines that go underneath it and there's spacing for the wings, or maybe it's two clamshells that are on a spreader bar. There's a lot of technical stuff.
It would have to be custom built, right? There's nothing like
it's going to have to be custom built. That's actually not that difficult to build it. And then I don't know, I just did a quick calculation last night. You're probably looking at 10 to 12 hours at least, from when you start picking it up until you get it to the surface.
Wow.
The big issue with keeping the integrity of the craft is going to be when you break the water air interface. That's always, when you're launching or recovering something, that's always the most difficult part, is going from air into water or coming out of the water going into air, because you've got so much pressure difference and you've got the wave action and wind and all of those things. And then you're going to have a barge or something that's got a tank big enough that you can just put the plane in that tank of salt water. Because you're going to need, as Tony said, every minute that thing's out of the water, it's going to start to deteriorate. And then you got to get it back to a lab where conservators who do this kind of stuff for a living will, they know how to treat aluminum that's that old. They know what chemicals to put in the water. They know how often the water needs to be changed, whether it needs constant flow, all of those things. And that'll be archaeologists and conservators that do that.
So was my Oreo comparison there? Was that somewhat? How did I do there?
That's a pretty good layperson analogy.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Try and pick it up. It could easily, if you don't do it the right way, if you take a spoon and put it down in the bottom of your glass and pick up that Oreo, it's going to come up mostly in one piece, right?
Right. So you need the spoon.
Put your fingers in there and grab it, it's going to fall apart.
Let me ask you, this McKenna has a great follow-up question, but let me ask you this quick follow-up. If it's determined that there is no way to salvage it without doing significant damage to it, do they leave it down there and just try to document it with as many high definition cameras as possible so that it just stays down there and it remains down there till the end of time?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. I mean, if everybody that comes in and looks at it, and as Tony and I were talking before we came on air, there's only a couple of companies. There's maybe 4 companies maybe 5 that can salvage that deep. Mine being one of them. But we would have to gather all the equipment. We have the expertise, pardon me, but we don't have, at the moment, we don't have the equipment that can go that deep. So there's only 4 or 5 in the world that could go down and salvage that. And if you get those people looking at it, because nobody wants to be the guy that said, "Yeah, I could bring the Earhart plane
That's
up."
right.
And all I got are 3,700 different little tiny pieces. Nobody in this industry wants to be that guy. So if you don't think that you're going to be successful, then you're going to turn the job down. And if nobody thinks they can do it, more than I would assume that they would decide to, let's get down there with ROVs and do multi-beam scanning, do photogrammetry. So we've got nice 3D images and high definition pictures, and you do as much documenting of it as possible. And then it just stays there.
Again, live here with Mark.
It's not like it's going to have a lot of people going down. I know there's been a number of visits to the Titanic, which is at 13,000 feet. That extra 2,000 or 3,000 feet, as you go down in the water, that becomes exponentially more expensive to build a piece of equipment that can go from 3,000 meters to 6,000 meters. There's a lot of stuff out there that'll go to 3,000 meters. There's not a lot of stuff that goes to 6,000 meters because it's not twice as expensive. It's 4 or 5 times more expensive.
And as we learned during Ocean Gate, it has to be done the right way, or you are dealing with a scenario where catastrophe is the outcome. I want to get to as many questions here as possible. Again, we are live here with Mark Martin, everybody, across all platforms, but the primary purpose for us now is to ask Mark questions using hashtag HeyMark or hashtag HeyJB. I'll look for both here in our comment section. Also, I want to point out that this poll, I mean, really, we're trying to collect as many votes on this poll, and you vote in the poll by going to www.heyjb.live in a web browser on any device, phone, tablet, computer. I do know that it's not available internationally, and we apologize for that. It's more of a domestic tool, but we're trying to get as many votes as possible. There is no gotcha sort of moment with it. It's just purely a means for us to collect all of our poll votes in one singular place rather than running a poll on Facebook and YouTube and all these different places and then having to do the math afterwards. It's just makes our heads spin. So it's just a clear, easy way. One tap, one click, and you're done as far as participating in our interactive poll. And we really hope you do so. We're debuting this technology for the first time. So we hope that we get as many votes as possible. Right, Mark? Mark, help me out here. We're trying to get as many votes on the poll as possible.
I would love for people to vote. And it's much like the brothers said, they welcome questions and they welcome other opinions. It's, I guess if I had it, if I was going to take this, if I could figure out how to get to where the poll is.
Mark, I laid it out there pretty simply for you, but it's okay.
I know, but I wasn't really paying attention. So, and it's not something I could figure out on my own problem. So, is it a yes or no? I think this is a great question for the public. You're going to get some people that maybe have an idea of what's going on. You're going to have some people that have no idea of what's going on. Do I think that it's been found? I don't know. But I do think that we're closer than we've ever been before.
That's exciting. That's extremely exciting. Really just to be.
I'm absolutely excited, and being able to talk to them before we went on air, I mean, I have not just a personal interest, but a professional interest in this. And being able to talk to them and ask them how they went about a couple of things, and them, be able to explain why they think this was great. I mean, that's what I do for a living. Again, you got to be crazy.
Mark, with your crazy mentality, you cool to hang out with us for another 20 minutes till 1:30 Eastern?
Yeah, that'll work.
All right, let's do it. See, I'm not the only one making analogies, by the way. Oh, well, hold on. I'm sorry. I skipped that question really quickly. McKenna, hashtag Hey Mark. Can we answer this one pretty quick? Is there any way her body could be in the hatch?
It's been 80 years, 87 years. I doubt there's anything left. There might be, depending upon what the bottom is there, whether it's clay or sand or whatever. There might be some clothing left. There might even be some bone left, because it's that deep. There might be some bone left. There might be, but I don't think you're going to find an intact body.
Do the temperatures being as frigid as they would be down at that depth, does that help with preservation at all? Or
yeah, but you also have to remember that no matter where you are on the planet, the temperature at 10,000 feet and below is the same, whether you're at the equator or whether you're at the North Pole.
Interesting.
The temperature is not going to vary more than 2 or 3 degrees.
McKenna, we appreciate the question. Let's
you want to. There's not a lot of oxygen. It's cold. It's going to take a little longer for things to decompress, but there's still organisms down there, so the flesh was gone fairly quickly.
Forever curious. Hashtag. We touched on this earlier, but if the aircraft is retrieved, who owns it?
It was a privately owned aircraft. So as the brothers said, you don't have the insurance companies and governments and all of that involved. So it sounds like they're talking to the Earhart family, who, without knowing a lot of the particulars, my assumption would be the Earhart, her heirs own that plane. If she's the one that owned the plane, her heirs own that plane. It's pretty obvious that the brothers have been in discussion with the Earhart family. So it's theirs to do whatever they want. If they want to donate it to the Smithsonian, if they want to, figure out how to preserve it and put it on a worldwide tour and make money off of that, whatever they want to do.
Again, go to www.heyjb.live to vote in our poll question here in the center of your screen, and the results will animate as we get closer to 1:30. But we need more votes to be able to do that.
People, let's vote.
Yeah, thank you. We need to get the vote count. We need to get the vote count up here. Let's go to
all the help you can get.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you, man. Good friend. It's not. I don't even look at you as like our expert on stream. You're just my friend now. So I mean,
we're beer drinking buddies.
I love it. Maddie wants to know, hashtags for us both, is the tail fin the most conclusive part of the image? That is very unique to her plane, Maddie says.
Yes. There weren't a lot of planes. The Electra was one of the few models of planes that had that double stabilizer.
Tempe wants to know, how do they know this isn't a plane from World War II?
They don't.
Right.
However, there weren't a lot of. It certainly resembles, as rough as that image is, it certainly resembles an Electra. Could it be a World War II plane? Sure, it could be. Not a lot of planes had that design. There weren't any, there weren't any warplanes that were that size that had that design.
Meg wants to know, hashtag HJB, is the found plane close to Nicomaroro Island, which, of course, is the island. That's the new name for Gardner Island. We brought this up on the stream earlier, 4 hours south of really the Earhart's targeted area of Howard Island. And that was put to rest by Tony, saying that, no, this is near Howard Island, not near Gardner Island, as some theorists have led us to believe that they have evidence that points to Nicomaroro. It's not necessarily in that this discovery, this sonar image is not near that that island.
No, I agree. I don't think they're anywhere near Gardner.
Riley, I wore this for you today, Mark, by the way. Yeah, so it's you like that? So
I do.
Riley says, love the anchor tie. I thought, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't have too many opportunities to wear this.
There you go. Obviously, I'm going to have to come over and have more beers with you to give you more reason to wear that tie.
Yeah, and meet the kid.
Although you did shed the tie, did you not, when we were drinking? Did you?
Ooh.
No, I think you just loosened it. I don't think you took it.
I think we were on stream for 11 hours. I was on stream for 11 hours, and you were there for most of it. I think it was 6. So it was a long day.
Yeah, it was 8 hours. It was a long day.
Let's go to this question here from Robin. Hashtag Hey Mark. Realistically, how long to get it confirmed?
That's that's a hard question to answer, only because there are so many variables that are required for them to go back and look. Do they have the money to hire the equipment and the vessel? Because this stuff is not cheap. They're looking at, when they go back, they're looking at spending anywhere between $100,000 and $150,000 a day when they go back out to look for it, in order to pay for the equipment that can go down that deep. If they've got the money and the equipment is available for hire and they can put it together, they have the exact coordinates. So it's not going to take them long to get into dynamic positioning, pretty much over the spot, send equipment down and ground truth where they are, that yes, they're actually in the right spot, and then be able to put the equipment down to do a really good comprehensive survey. And that shouldn't take, once they actually get to sea, it's the transit time out there. And hopefully within a couple of days of being on station, they'll have an answer.
I'm
so
very curious, obviously.
The time lag is going to be getting out there. And then obviously once you get out there, having the weather cooperate. But once they're actually in the water, I don't think it'll take more than a couple of days.
I want to bring this up because did I misspeak? If I said Howard Island, apologies. I meant to say Howland Island. Yeah. I think subconsciously I'm so used to saying Howard because I know a Howard. So I might have Freudian slip and said Howland or Howard instead of Howland. Apologies there. But Kimberly, thanks for being on top of it. Let's go to. All right, let's go to. You know what? Let's just quickly get to Cello again. Hashtag Hey Mark. Could this be an airplane, just not Amelia's, i.e. in a World War II plane? Yeah, we touched on this, but the answer to this is basically yes, right? Yeah. Let's go to Riley Fitzsimmons. Hashtag Hey Mark. What kind of sound waves are used to measure the distance from the seabed to the surface?
It's just they're just acoustic waves. They're sound waves. Depending on how deep you are, a side scan typically uses 1 to 2 frequencies. A multi-beam has a number of frequencies that are going, which is why you can create like a 3D image with multi-beam. Once it's been processed, you can actually build a 3D image from the returns you get from multi-beam, because there are a number of beams going down very close together at different frequencies. and they measure that coming back. So it depends on what you're doing, but it's just a sound wave, and you pick the frequency depending on what it is that you want to do.
Forever curious, hashtag Hey Mark, any data regarding the number of aircraft likely lost in the ocean?
The top of my head, tens of thousands.
Wow.
I don't, I don't know, but I mean, just think about how many planes we lost. Think about how many planes everybody lost in World War II.
Yep. Let's see here. Any other final questions before we're going to reveal the results? Oh no, let's get to Kelly. Hashtag Hey JB and Mark. Would they look for investors to donate time and money to fund the, I think that meant to say expedition, but my thought on this is absolutely yes, but the credit for the discovery, you brought up a really good point earlier, Mark, book rights, then the inevitable Netflix series or Max series or Hulu series, right? I mean, all of these questions, there's a big money component attached to this if this is in fact the Earhart plane.
They've already spent $11 million. I don't know too many people who have that kind of money sitting in their bank account. So I have to assume that they have already found investors who have at least invested in this phase of the expedition. Do they need new investors for follow-on expeditions? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the group that they have has funded the next couple of expeditions already. That goes back to my answer about how long before they can confirm it. Part of that is, do they have the money to get everything they need in place? So I'm sure that the investors want to at least get their money back. So they would have, there's some sort of a contract where, the investor's going to recoup from book deals or movie deals or documentary deals or something like that.
Yeah. A couple more before we wrap this up, and I also want to talk OceanGate for a second here while I have Mark on stream. We're gonna talk OceanGate for a second, but Sarah wants to know for you, Mark, can we definitively or definitely say that it's a plane, or could it be a crashed ship, et cetera, et cetera? Could it be anything? Or you, where's your confidence level? This is just, let's not even Earhart's plane. What's your confidence level that this is a plane?
Level that it's a plane is pretty high.
Okay.
It doesn't look like a shipwreck to me, but on the other hand, I've looked at a lot of shipwrecks, and some of them didn't look like shipwrecks until I got down there and looked at it, or until I sent a camera down and looked at it, one or the other. So is there a possibility that it's a shipwreck? Yes, but that probability is very low. I would say in the small single digits. I would say that the probability that it's an airplane are in high double digits.
And then we'll take some more comments and questions at the end here. But Nick says, "Hey, wondering if maybe the Romeo brothers, if they do defy history and actually find Earhart's plane, maybe next up for them is the Malaysian 370 flight, because that's not a single or dual engine aircraft. That is a commercial airliner that disappeared over the ocean." Mark,
right? And they said, look, they went and looked for another airplane after they found this one. They went and looked for another airplane, and they have other things on their agenda that they want to look for. In this business, you have to play your cards pretty close to your chest. So they're not going to tell us what they're looking for. I wouldn't tell you until I found it.
exactly.
Or if it was something like Earhart's plane, and I had something that was better than anybody else had come up with before. But they're not. Yeah, they're. If they found something that they thought might be the that aircraft, then they might come out and do something like they're doing now. But they're not gonna tell you they're going to look for that. Too many people have failed.
Let's reveal the results of our poll in 60 seconds. Last call for votes on www.heyjb.live. We're trying to get the vote count as much as possible. And again, the reason that we're using a new voting polling system rather is because we now have a means to get votes from everywhere, from every platform all at once. You just have to basically open up a web browser, go to www.heyjb.live, and then you can vote. And we are asking the question based on this new sonar image: do you think Amelia Earhart's plane has been found? Do people see it? Do they put themselves 15,000 feet underwater and say, "Yeah, this is it. We found it. It's 85 years in the making. We have actually discovered it," or does the search continue? We're going to give another 30 seconds to give people a chance to vote. There is no reason to get your votes other than just collecting as much feedback here as possible. There's no tracking. We don't track your votes or anything like that. It's just a yes or no, one tap, one click poll. Mark, you think more people are feeling optimistic that this is it, or you think that they're skeptical?
I think generally people that might have been skeptical, maybe we have shown them that there's a definite possibility that there is. I mean, I can't say that that's Earhart's plane.
Right.
I can't swear that that's an airplane. It sure looks like one to me, based on my experience. Hopefully, I think it's been a good discussion, and hopefully people that were interested in it have learned something. And I think if they have learned something, we've reduced their skepticism.
Let's close the poll and get to the results here, and we'll see them animate on your screen. And 82% of people, in a very unscientific social media poll, 82% of people believe, based on the Romeo brothers conversation, but after hearing from you, Mark, that they believe that this is, in fact, Amelia Earhart's plane. That's your reaction. What do you think?
I think that's great. Again, very unscientific polling. Am I 82% that it's Earhart's plane? I don't know, but I'd probably say I'm 75 anyway.
Wow.
I'm in the high double digits that that's an airplane. I'm in probably 90% that's an airplane. That it's Earhart's airplane, that's the only image I've got to look at. If I was able to get a closer look at the images they have, maybe I could make a better. But again, those guys are professional. I was very impressed by both of them. They knew what they were doing. This wasn't just a stroke of luck. So based on that, they're pretty confident. So I hope it is. I hope it is, and I hope they call me.
I'm glad that we were able to link you guys up. That's totally a bonus here on stream.
Yeah, because Tony had some questions beforehand about who if we do go for recovery, who do you think? And so
Mark, you're retired.
What's that?
You're retired, Mark, or would you go out there?
I'm retired from the Navy. I got $3. I'm going to have to work until lunchtime on the day of my funeral.
Well,
you got a kid now. You get it.
Yeah, I do. Gotta bring home the bacon.
Yeah.
But man, it would be wild if they were able to seek out your expertise. Of course, we know.
I mean, we Would love to be able to consult or be part of the research going forward and possibly the operation. It'd be great, like I said, this is what I do for a living. It'd be great that to
Collaborate.
have some small part in it. Yeah.
We are asking you now on, as we wrap up here, we're going to talk about OceanGate for a second. But as we do, these are live results. You just saw them populate on your screen. You can go to www.heyjb.live and tell us what you think of the show. You can give us 5 stars, give us 4 stars. I got Rebecca over here in the Stream Center. Maybe she can confirm for me that this tool is working, because this is debut technology. But go over to www.heyjb.live and just you give us feedback on what you thought of the stream. It's very helpful for us and what stories we should be covering next. What's that now? Oh, already voted. Thank you. Thank you. So we're already getting votes here, completely unbiased from Rebecca Barry. You're in the Stream Center. Mark, really quickly, as we wait for people to provide us with some feedback and tell us what they think of the stream. OceanGate. Let's just quickly talk about it. The most recent that I was able to find was an article. Let's see here. I believe it was from November of last year. I'm crediting MarineLink here, that authorities continue to review evidence from the Titan submersible tragedy, and that the MRI, that's the Titan Marine Board of Investigation, or the MBI, excuse me, MBI, they are going to continue to analyze the evidence, collect witness interviews, and that there will be, they're saying, a public hearing on the tragedy at some point in the future. What are you hearing? You of course know so many people across the industry now. The fallout from it. It's been many months later, and I'm sure you've had a lot of time to sit and think about it all. What have you heard, and what's your viewpoint on OceanGate looking back now?
Been to a couple of conferences in that time frame and have had, several discussions there as well. Yeah, the MBI is very much like the NTSB, which we normally associate with aircraft crashes, but they do everything from trains to buses to ships to, this was so high profile that, a hearing, if they're going to have a hearing, it's probably at least 2 or 3 months out yet. They're reconstructing it just like they do after an aircraft crash. They're investigating, they're talking to all the people that were on the ship. They're talking to people that were involved in the search and the recovery. I don't expect the report to come out until at least late summer.
So in essence, a year later, a year afterwards.
Yeah, a year to a year and a half after, I think, before you get a comprehensive report from the MBI, because they're going to want to run it through the NTSB of both the U.S. and Canada as well.
So I'd like to stream it. I mean, I wonder if there's interest out there. You guys can throw a thumbs up in the comment section if you guys would like for us to stream that public hearing. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's a public hearing. You would think that the media would be invited and that live stream access would be permitted. But we talk about this on stream a lot with court cases about how some jurisdictions allow for streaming, others do not. Some are closed doors, some are open to the public. But what do you think, Mark? You think that they'll make that public enough that it'll be media accessible?
I think that this is a high profile enough case that it's going to be a public hearing. So obviously it's open to the public. Pardon me. Will they allow news organizations? There's a good chance, I think. Mm-hmm. They'll designate, 2 or 3. They're not going to want a dozen different camera crews in the hearing room. They'll want, 3 or 4 probably. But I don't know how you guys do that, but I'm sure there's some way to share all of that.
I'll call. I mean, that's what I do. I call courts, I call organizations, I call even government agencies if I have to, and say, hey, can I stream this? If I had a nickel for every time I've asked, can I stream this? So we will, of course, do that in regards to the Ocean Gate story. And Mark, I think that that's an opportunity for us to hop back on stream in the future. It's always a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, if I'm not offshore, and depending, maybe even if I am offshore, uh, con Neil or Seb into taking part of my shift, maybe. But
You're saying that you'd be able to join us from offshore on stream?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I might be able to. Yeah, depend on, it's going to depend on the timing and all of that. And that might be, the viewers might be interested in that as well. Maybe I could take my tablet and walk around on the deck and show them some of the equipment.
There you go. That would be extremely insightful. We could all learn. That's my favorite thing to do on stream is learn, and of course to hear from all of you. Team Brittany, one of our great moderators on YouTube Live, saying that when Mark Martin comes on, it's like the Powerball lottery of guests today. And I appreciate everybody. Mark Martin, guys can give some clapping emojis in the comment section. Mark, the floor is yours here. Any final thoughts, whether it's in regards to Earhart, whether it's in regards to Ocean Gate? The mic is yours, my friend.
Okay. Let's see. Ocean Gate, I don't really think I have anything to add. Those of us in the community have discussed it ad nauseum. And we're not going to know anything until they release more information. So you can get all the conjecture you want, but until more information's released, I have my opinions, and I don't think they're going to change unless I find out additional information. As for Earhart, I think that if this is in fact her plane, I think it's fantastic. This is the kind of stuff that I live for. That's why I'm old and fat and white-haired and still doing this for a living, is because, making discoveries, do I really love it when I'm the one making a discovery? Absolutely. But I'm also quite pleased when other people find it. I wasn't looking for Amelia Earhart's plane. If the Romeo brothers have found it, that's fantastic. We all get to learn from that. We're all going to learn what they learned from this expedition, and some of that's going to be technical and technique, and how maybe we do future ultra deep sea recoveries. The other part of it is just going to be the history part. We will have solved one of the major mysteries of the 20th century.
I second that.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I think that's fantastic, and I applaud anybody who's going out and doing this kind of stuff.
Likewise, and I remember you and I had got together at the brewery here in Tampa, and I was able to meet some others in the industry that you brought along as well, and that was such a. I'm sorry.
Bastet Brewery.
Yeah, that's right. Now we can say where it was. At the time, we were live for, I don't know, it was 100,000 people or something, and yeah,
I already blew it when we were live.
that was a good time. It was good to meet you in person and not just over a Zoom call. I'll end out on this. I love the Earhart story ever since I was in. I think it was fifth grade. You'll like this, Mark. My social studies teacher decided to assign everybody a project to write a paper on a historical event that occurred on their birthday. And July 2nd is my birthday. And so that is, of course, the day that Earhart went. So I was given the Earhart assignment, and it was great because everybody in the class had, an opportunity to tell a story of great historical significance. And I think I was supposed to write a page on Earhart, and I think I wrote 3 or 4, which because I love this, I was so fascinated by what had happened, and was also so curious as to where she wound up. So I've always been I've always had an attachment to this story, and every now and again I'll think, what happened to that plane? Where did it go? And I hope that in our lifetimes, my friend, I hope that we get an answer.
Oh yeah. I wish them all the luck. I hope they found it. I hope they found it. I hope when they go back and look at it, they can confirm that it's her Electra. And I'm just looking forward to everything that happens after that.
Likewise, I look forward to the next time I have you on stream, my friend. Mark Martin, once again, hit the applause button. Thank you for your time. We apparently did pretty good, a 4.9 out of 5 stars. So hey, look, we'll take it.
If I wasn't here, you probably would have got 5.
No. It's the opposite. Believe me, it's the opposite. Mark Martin, everybody, thank you so much. You can continuously, of course, go to WFLA.com for updates on this story. You can, of course, follow Mark Martin on Instagram. His Instagram is, hey, man, you feel
Pilot 1.
There it is. What is DSV Pilot 1?
Yeah, I actually know it now.
There you go. I remember the last time we were on stream, you didn't even know your own Instagram handle, and you had to get some help.
No, it was Chelsea had to help me out. Chelsea had to help me out because that's what I thought it was, but I wasn't sure. I don't do TikTok. I don't do Snapchat. I don't do Twitter. I don't do, well, now it's X, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not,
yeah. It doesn't have the same ring to it.
I'm keeping up.
Mark, you and I will keep in touch, my friend. All the best to you. Everybody joining us on stream, we really appreciate it. We hope to have Mark on again in the future, and we also thank you to everybody who voted. Really very much appreciate it. A little bit of a debut today for us trying this out for the first time. Really appreciate your time, everybody. All the very best. Mark, you and I will catch up off stream. And to everybody joining us, thanks so much for joining us here from the Stream Center. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you.